Tell me, who am I?
You are Dr. Frankenstein.
And you are Dr. Kettering.
I am not Dr. Kettering. I am Igor.
My God, what have I done?
I, Igor, have the strength of 100 men. I cannot die. I cannot be destroyed. I, Igor, will live forever.
Hi, this is Trepacer. Since it's Saturday, I'm going to continue my tradition of reviewing two movies, and I'm going to go old school. I'm going to go old horror, old school, Universal horror to be specifically, and I'm going to review two movies that came in the Universal Horror Monsters DVD set that came out a few years ago. Of course, I'm going to review a movie in the Frankenstein set and a movie in the Dracula set, and I'm going to review two movies that I guess have sons in the title. Okay, and the first movie I'll be reviewing in the Frankenstein set is the third movie in the Frankenstein series. This will be The Son of Frankenstein, which came out in 1939, and this was the third movie in the Frankenstein series. Excuse me. And this one stars, of course, again, Boris Karloff as the monster. Okay, and this one also stars Basil Rathbone, who played Sherlock Holmes. Okay, and Bela Lugosi is Igor, and Basil Rathbone plays a son of the original Frankenstein creator, and he plays Baron Wolf von Frankenstein. Upon the death of his father, he comes back to the village, or to his where his father, the little village where his father was raised and his family lived for thousands of years. And of course, the locals are not giving him a warm welcome because they're still fearful after all the events that happened in the previous two movies with the monster running amok and killing people and murder and mayhem. So of course they don't greet him warmly. They just give him the package, the note, basically the keys to the castle and his father's notes, and they basically don't want to have anything to do with him at all. Okay, even though you can tell Wolf von Frankenstein is is very proud and prideful of his father, what his father accomplished, and he even because he has a conversation with his wife when he's on the train coming to the home, and he's basically explaining how if it wasn't for the mistake of a bungling assistant who gave his father an evil brain for his creation, what his father created was fantastic, and how brilliant his father was, and he even mentions that the people have blown up the legend so much that they even refer to this creature as Frankenstein. He literally says that, okay? Which, like I said, a lot of people did initially when this movie, after the movie came out, they called the creature the monster or Frankenstein, even though it was never really supposed to be Frankenstein. Frankenstein was the creator, of course. Anyway, basically, Wolf, settles in his family house with his wife and his young son, okay, Peter, and he has servants and everything else, and then he explores his father's lab, which is an outside the family mansion, that's been destroyed in the last movie, that got kind of blown up in the last movie, and he encounters Igor. Okay, Igor, the assistant who has basically the broken neck from being hanged for basically stealing bodies. Okay, stealing dead bodies. He's basically been, he was hung, but he actually survived and actually buried, but he's actually still alive. So since he survived death, even after he was declared dead, they basically let him roam free, and he's basically living in the ruins of Frankenstein's father's lab. Okay, whereupon Igor introduces Wolf to the creature, the monster, again played for the third and last time by Boris Karloff. But this time the monster is, if you remember the events of the previous movie, Bride of Frankenstein, he basically supposedly blew himself up, the bride, and Dr. Pretorius. He blew them all up in the explosion, but survived. Amazingly, he survived, and like Igor says, this creature cannot be destroyed. Okay, the father, he tells Wolf that your father created him and gave him eternal life, so he cannot be destroyed. But he's in a kind of weakened condition, and basically Igor, pleads with him to restore his his father's creation to life. And Wolf, there's a great moment where they go into basically into the crypt of Wolf's fathers, and his grandfather buried there. And on his father's tomb it says "Maker of Monsters," and you can see that highly upsets him, and he basically scrolls it out and puts "Maker of Men" in there, and basically he proceeds to basically examine the monster and basically give it electric bolts, to restore its health to him. And he thinks he's failed, because the creature, while initially rising, basically lies dormant again, and he figures that's it. The creature is basically dying, and that's it. And he can't do anything more about it. But later, of course, he finds out that that's not the case. That the creature is alive. Okay, and Igor is basically using the creature to extract revenge against the people who basically, the jury, I guess, that hung him. Okay, and this movie is really, really good. This is the whole atmosphere of the movie is just fantastic. The whole sets, the sets are like these big long sets. I think they call it German expressionism, where you have these big wide, the images, the places in the castle, like they're big and long. Okay, and I think they call that term German expressionism, the design of it. Okay, and of course it's filmed in black and white, and I think Basil Rathbone is outstanding as Baron Wolfman Frankenstein, who's like prideful, and you can tell he loves his father, and he basically wants to restore his father's good name and have people really acknowledge that his father was a genius and his father wasn't a maker of monsters, and it wasn't his fault that the monster went bad. And of course, then you have Bela Lugosi as Igor, who's absolutely great as this this misshapen guy with a broken neck who basically uses the creature to get his revenge. And Boris Karloff, he doesn't have any lines as the monster in this movie. He basically is a tool used by Igor to extract his revenge. Okay, but it's a really good movie, good atmosphere, and also special mention to Lionel Atwood, who plays Lieutenant, I think it's Commander Crow, who's like the local commandant in the village. And of course, he has his right arm is a wooden arm. And because his arm, he even tells Wolfman Frankenstein how when he was a little kid, how the creature was terrorizing the countryside and burst in his father's house and knocked his father to the side and basically ripped his arm off. Okay, and he's really good as the guy who tells Wolf Frankenstein that the people hate you in the village, but as the commander of the police force, I'm sworn to protect you. And they kind of form a sort of a friendship, and then which is slowly tested when, of course, the creature basically starts killing again. Okay, and like I said, this movie has a lot of great atmosphere to it, and it's a worthy sequel to the first two movies. But I think it's a step below the first two movies, though, slightly. So I would give this movie a Son of Frankenstein at 7.5. Definitely worth getting and definitely worth checking out. A great entry into the Universal horror monster movies. Okay, now the next movie that I'm reviewing will be speaking of sun, we have a sun theme, and this one will be the one that came in the Dracula set for the Universal DVD horror monster set. And what I'm talking about is 1943's The Son of Dracula. This movie stars, of course, Lon Chaney Jr. as Count Alucard, which is Dracula spelled backwards for those who don't know. You have Robert Page, Louise Albatron, I think Evelyn Akers is in this as well. Okay, and who else? I'm sorry, I want to get the names right. J. Edward Bromberg is Professor Laszlo, and Frank Craven is Dr. Harry Brewster. And basically what this story is about is a young lady named Catherine Caldwell who comes from this real rich family down in the South, and which is called it's called the Dark Oaks. And she, on her way, while she was traveling, they kind of established that she was in Budapest, and she met a Count Alucard, who she basically invites back, to visit her family down at Dark Oaks. Now she's engaged to a man named Frank Stanley. Okay, and during the first night of Count Alucard's visit, her father dies. Catherine's father dies, and of course since she's the oldest, she inherits his estate, and even though she's the oldest and she has a sister, played by Evelyn Ankers, and she promptly breaks up with Frank Stanley and announces that she's going to marry Count Alucard. Of course, Frank Stanley is devastated and doesn't understand what's going on, and he thinks that this Count Alucard is doing something to Catherine, and he confronts him, and basically he shoots Count Alucard, who we know is a vampire, and of course the bullets pass through him and basically hit Catherine, who promptly he thinks he killed her, of course, so he basically confesses. Okay, and then of course, the police go and investigate. They lock him up and they go to investigate, and then they find out, of course, that she's not dead. Okay, and they're wondering why he's saying that she's dead when she's not. But of course, he remembers shooting her and he remembers her falling. But what he doesn't know, of course, that she had gotten turned, and she's been turned into a vampire by Count Alucard, who basically came to this country because he said his race was a dying race back where he was in Budapest. So he's come to America, where basically I think the term he uses, the land is where the land is vibrant and more fertile. So basically they think Frank is he's losing his mind because he thinks he killed Catherine, but of course she's not dead. She's been turned into a vampire. And you have Dr. Harry Brewster, who's a good friend of Frank Stanley. He calls his friend Professor Laszlo, who's an expert in like European folklore and stuff, and he basically informs him that that Count Alucard could be a vampire, and he tells him about all the ways that he could be a vampire and everything else. And of course, even Count Alucard confronts them to the point where then because of course Harry Brewster he's skeptical that's a vampire. He doesn't believe in it, but actually when Count Alucard attacks him, then he believes. Of course, then he believes. And then basically the rest of the movie is you find out the motivation for Catherine's character. She really doesn't love Count Alucard. She basically wants, because they established early in the movie that she's obsessed with dark things and the occult, and basically what she wants is immortality is what she wants, and she gets it through it. She uses Count Alucard to get that immortality. So basically, they're using each other. She wants immortality. He wants to be in America and to exploit all the all the potential prey that he can get in this young, vibrant country. As he's but she has a plan, of course, to kind of counteract that. Okay, which I don't want to spoil. And the rest of the movie is basically her carrying out her plan, with the help. With her help, and also with Dr. Harry Brewster and Dr. Laszlo trying to, thwart Count Alucard. Now, Lon Chaney plays Count Alucard. Now, he's not the best actor to play Dracula by a long shot. He kind of plays him, of course, totally different than Bela Lugosi. You can tell he tries it, but I'm going to say that his portrayal is not the worst I've seen, but it's definitely not, I think, as good as Bela Lugosi. Bela Lugosi, of course, had that regal presence about himself, and I think Lon Chaney does the best he could with the part. Like I say, I wouldn't say he's totally miscast, but I don't think that's his best role ever. I think he does a decent job, okay, but he's not the best, but it doesn't spoil the movie to me. I think the real stars of this movie are the actress Lois Alberton, who plays Catherine Caldwell, who basically uses Count Alucard, and also I think Robert Page, who plays Frank Stanley, the fiance, who of course thinks he killed his fiance, and he basically finds out that his fiance is a vampire, and they have to stop Count Alucard, and also I like Professor Laszlo, played by J. Edward Bromberg, who's a real stoic kind of guy who basically he has that strong belief about vampires, and he basically has to convince his friend Dr. Harry Brewster that vampires do exist. So I thought they gave great performances too. And like I said, Lon Chaney Jr. gave a decent performance. It wasn't the best, but it was okay, and it didn't totally ruin the movie for me. So I'm going to give Son of Dracula a, I'll give it a 7. Like I said, because I think they did a totally different thing by having it, because usually they have it set in either England or even Romania or somewhere like that for them. They had it, the setting of this, having it set in the Deep South and having it filmed in black and white, I think added to the whole atmosphere. So I'm going to give it a 7. Son of Dracula, a 7. Okay, I'm going to give it a 7 just because, like I said, I thought the actress who played the lead role in this, I thought she was really good, and I think also the guy who played, I guess, the co-lead, Robert Page, I thought he was good as well. Okay, and again, Son of Frankenstein, I'm going to give that a 7.5, maybe 7.8. I'll give it a 7.8 because I really like, Basil Rathbone and Bela Lugosi in this. They were really good, and I like the whole atmosphere of the movie too as well. So I'm going to give it a 7.8. I know I said 7.5, but a 7.8 for Son of Frankenstein. Definitely a good entry into the series, and Boris Karloff's last performance as the creature or the monster. Okay, so if you've seen those two movies, let me know what you think. Feel free to leave comments down below. And this is Trepacer saying so long and take care.